this was a story that just kind of, grabbed Greater Cleveland, by the lapels, by the throat, just grabbed the entire region's attention. Here was this cute little girl with that little ponytail off to the side, and freckles and a cute smile on her face. I'm sure it was a class picture. That could be anybody's daughter, your next door neighbor's daughter. And in this idyllic community, Bay Village, very close-knit, very safe, secure, kind of almost Norman Rockwell-like in its ultimate Americana, where this sort of thing just wouldn't happen, couldn't happen, was absolutely unthinkable. And there was a great sense of shock and disbelief that just, again, completely grabbed the Greater Cleveland community. There were so many people that got involved with the initial search. I have visions of armies of people trudging through forests and fields and every square inch of Bay Village and parts of Westlake, and just everybody wanted to help. Everybody wanted to participate. I believe there were lawmen from multiple police departments. Obviously, Bay Village, a small police department, not equipped to handle a kidnapping, possibly foul play set of circumstances. So, everybody was heartbroken for the Mihaljevic family. And it just consumed the media here for weeks and weeks and weeks. Every day there'd be a push to advance the story, to move the story, to find a new development, and many days there was no there. There was no new development, but you were obliged to find some new twist, some new angle, somebody new to interview, to keep the story alive. So, having just become a parent myself a couple of years prior to, kind of, more sensitive to the issues involved here of, what could possibly happen, could this possibly happen to my child? I think this was an era not too far removed from, when the entire country started to pay more attention to missing children. That big national organization, I think, came into prominence. John Walsh, I believe, his son's story grabbed people's attention. Kids on the back of milk cartons. There was a lot more awareness of missing children, and this was just front and center every day for months on the news agenda of the city.
You came close to the case. Thanksgiving, you talk about that, how you spent your Thanksgiving reporting, working at the...
Well, I recall, again, this was such a big story that all hands on deck. Every reporter working at the station at that time did multiple stories about some aspect of it. I remember doing a number of stories about the, initial futile searches and, interviewing, friends of Amy and neighbors of the family. I had the unfortunate distinction, or the painful, heartbreaking job of actually doing a Thanksgiving story with the Mihaljevic family. Again, the police wanted to get as much coverage as possible, keep the story on the front page, keep the face of a possible suspect embedded in people's mind. So again, it was just very heartbreaking. The family I recall was trying to be as hopeful and in the spirit of Thanksgiving, giving thanks for what they did have.
Who was there? Who was inside the house?
Who was inside the house?
Thanksgiving, do you remember who was inside? Or?
Her dad, her mom, her brother. I think there were some other family members.
Were you the only media?
I can't remember if it was, everybody got their exclusive one-on-one, or I don't remember. We may have been the only media there. We had some other reporters at the station that had particularly close ties to the family. I recall Connie then Connie Deacon, lived in Bay Village at the time, and I think was able to develop a very close relationship, especially with Amy's mom.
Do you remember anything about the mood inside the house on Thanksgiving? Was your family upbeat? Were they feeling that they have to go through with this? And
Well, I think upbeat. No, I don't think they were upbeat. I mean, they were. I mean, obviously, there was an overpowering sense of, something is terribly wrong. Somebody is missing. We're not a complete family. But we have to do what we can to keep our spirits up and to promote coverage of the case, in the hopes that somebody watching might, remember something or get a glimpse of the suspect that might trigger a recollection that, might be the breakthrough that they needed.
there was probably, it's always talk about the first 48 hours. This is like, this is a month after she disappeared. So optimism had been gone.
Well, I think there's an awareness that the longer you go, the probability of a happy ending lessens significantly. So, but again, nobody wanted to talk about the probable. Everybody wanted to, as long as there's uncertainty, there's hope.
You remember anything about the family, the way they behaved, or anything? Sorry to get on. The father is always like that. He just seems like he's open to the media. He really respects the job we have to do. He welcomes the attention.
No, he was very grounded, and again, like you say, politely answered questions. I mean, you could tell maybe that it was wearisome and getting to be a burden on him, but yeah, he was very cooperative with the media.
The mom was always distraught.
The mom. Well, as it came to pass, some of her personal issues, came to light, and it was, how could this not be overpoweringly difficult?
The church. You were at the talk about the suspect who confessed his guilt and confessed that church.
St. Angela's Church in Fairview Park, a longtime parishioner, member of the church. My wife and I were attending, I believe it was the 9:30 Mass on a day in October, I believe, which ironically kind of close around the time of Amy's disappearance. And in the middle of the service, around communion time, there's a voice that just rings throughout the church. I am Satan, you know me, I killed Amy Mihaljevic. And, everybody is either surprised, aghast, afraid, looking around. It turns out that the fellow was in the middle of the church and had just bellowed this out so that everybody heard it. And some parents were, protecting their kids, and some guys were looking for him to figure out if there was something that they could do to help apprehend him. It turned out that there were, I believe a Fairview Park policeman and a couple of auxiliary policemen who were in church at the same time. So, I mean, he was apprehended pretty quickly and hustled out almost before people had time to try to process all this. What the heck had just happened? I mean, it was.
What was going through your mind?
Well, having covered the story some, I was thinking, oh my God, could this be the guy they'd been looking for all this time? I think it was maybe 11 or 12 years after the fact. But it was just so absolutely out of place, so stunning, so unexpected. I was just didn't know quite what to make of it. I mean, I ran outside the church, called the station, let them know to start making contact with police, whatever, to see where all of this would end. But at the end of the day, well, again, now I was not part of the actual coverage of the story, but as my recollection, as it turned out, it was a fella from Fairview Park that had mental issues, and yeah, he was. I think he was ruled out within a day. I mean, where was he on the day that that the disappearance happened? And I believe that he actually may have been institutionalized. So I think fairly quickly removed as a suspect. But
Mihaljevic wasn't in that church.
no.
Body is found in February. Do you recall that day and what that was like?
Yes, if memory serves me correctly, again,
It was a huge development there.
it was a huge development. Yes, there was, and I'm not sure if it came in by a phone call tip to the news desk, or if our fail-safe assignment editor Lisa Lowry had heard something on one of the scanners about a body being recovered in a fairly remote, in the middle of nowhere, farm field down toward Ashland. But I think, when there was a general awareness of what the basics of the storyline were, I think everybody had heart start that, oh my God, this is what we were all dreading. So I and a cameraman and a live truck operator went down there, and by the time we had gotten down there, the body had already been removed, but there were already a lot of scientific evidence type guys looking around, probably to see if they could find, whatever might be relevant to the case. But the people down there, I remember the landowner and all of his neighbors were just aghast. Well, how could this horrific thing? And she was identified fairly quickly by the Cuyahoga County Coroner, Dr. Balraj. So it became known that this, in fact, was Amy. It was a jogger who found her, I think, maybe 20, 25 feet in the field off the road, covered by a blanket. And there was discussion, well, when had she been killed? Had she been dumped there? Had she been there all this time? But again, the people who lived down there, I think, were just beside themselves to learn that this terrible story from the city somehow had wound up in their backyard.
Do you recall it? Did you have to go knock on the Mihaljevic door that day? Do you recall?
I did not. We had a whole team of reporters, and I'm guessing maybe Tom Sweeney or Connie Deacon perhaps spoke to Mihaljevic on that day.
Was there a sense of relief at this moment? At least we know.
Well, there's sort of an ambivalence to it. Again, this is what everybody had feared. This was what everybody in their heart of hearts had not wanted to be the end. But again, the realization that so much time had elapsed that the likelihood of lack of a ransom note, that Amy would be found safe and happy someplace, just wasn't going to happen. So again, you were profoundly sad, but at the same time, again, a sense of closure, that if this is how it was going to end, better that it be known.
Mr. Mihaljevic told us recently that he was surprised at the lack of evidence in that crime scene. They now had a crime scene to work with. He thought the case was going to be solved. Was that the emotion? Did you guys think that back then, that this was a major development that might lead to the identification of her abductor?
Well, I don't know if anybody, we're all living in the moment there, so I don't know how many, I don't know that people projected that far ahead, but, in hindsight, you would have thought that, there might have been, some kind of fabric or some kind of body hair, body fluid, or something that could contain DNA or other, incriminating evidence.
This was before DNA had really exploded.
Right, correct. Correct.
There was really.
Well, again, having lost touch with the story, but I believe DNA is now relevant to, what's going on today with the current state of the investigation.
The chief had mentioned too, it's funny and ironic, he talked about, if this happened today, we'd have cameras at the plaza, we'd have DNA evidence. This case would have been solved long before he did it, because there's cameras everywhere, there's cell phones everywhere.
Well, that's, the camera observation, like you say, I think the average person is in front of like 40 or 50 surveillance or police cameras or residential cameras every day. So
30 years. We're no closer. It feels that we're no closer than we were. What are you looking back at? Did you ever think that we would still be here today talking about you guys? Where did you think this case was going? Are you surprised it's been 30 years?
I forget what the milestone was, but at some point, I came to the sense that, okay, it's been a decade, it's been 20 years, and nobody seems to be able to provide, and I don't know what the reward got up to, but I'm sure it got to be a significant, amount of incentive where people motivated by, financial, if somebody knew something, well, again, obviously, there have been thousands, I don't know the exact number, but there's been just an overwhelming amount of tips and leads and trails to pursue. But at some point, I think I just resigned myself to, I don't think it's going to happen unless there's one of these DNA roundabout connected to a third cousin, connected to somebody who was in the area at that time. I'm, never say never, but I highly doubt that it's ever going to be solved.
Just too much time's passed. It would have to really, they need someone to talk, confession.
Right, somebody blabbing in a bar, well, that only happens in novels, I guess.
Heavy conscience maybe or something, but I mean, after 30 years, why would you put the book?
Right, if it ain't happened by now, it ain't gonna happen, I don't think.
How does that sit with you?
Huh?
How does that sit with you, that it's not gonna happen?
Well, I mean, a sense of incompletion, a sense of, compassion for, the Mihaljevic family to still have this, big hole in the story of what happened to their beautiful daughter and why. It's sad, understandably very sad all the way around, and I can't imagine what it'd be like to be in that circumstance, to get up every day and have that be part of your reality that one of your children died under terrible circumstances, and no one's going to be held accountable for it.